Hello and welcome back to Alex FPL. Today we're looking at the best defenders in FPL. There's hundreds of them, so instead of ranking every single one, we're going to be focusing on the most selected defenders, i.e. above 8%, and then I've added some other differentials in there that I think are potentially being overlooked. Also, I'm basing these picks off of how good they are for Game Week 1, not across the season. So preseason injuries, form of fixtures will all be big factors in how I rank them. Starting with the defenders to avoid, we have Gabriel selected by 22% of players. Now, Gabriel was also in my first ever draft. However, having looked at the news and the preseason friendlies, he hasn't featured anywhere. He's injured. And also, Arsenal do have some bad opening fixtures. On top of that, Gabriel's not amazing for defensive contributions at only 7%. So I think he's a bit of a risky pick at this point. So I would try and avoid him in the early stages of the season and then just monitor him throughout. Next up, we have Udogi, selected by 8% of FPL managers. Udogi is injured, so this is an easy one. Stay away. Then we have a very surprising pick of Alex Moreno, selected by 11% of FPL managers. I don't really understand this one. He's not first choice at Aston Villa, and there's reports saying he could even leave the club before the transfer window closes, so easy avoid. Next up, we have Konza at Aston Villa, 4.5 million, selected by 23% of FPL managers. He only achieved defensive contribution in 3% of games last season, so definitely not a pick I'll be looking at. He also might be a rotation risk. I would call him a risky pick at this point. Then we have Aït-Nouri, selected by 23% of managers, obviously at City now, and with that comes Pep Roulette. So I'm going to keep an eye on him because he could be an amazing pick if we see that he keeps starting. However, given the information we have right now, which is not a lot, I would say he's a risky pick. Then we have Aina at Nottingham Forest. I had Aina for a long time last season and he was a good pick for me. However, looking at the stats for the season coming up, there are many other defensive contribution beasts in the back line for Nottingham Forest. Aina is not one of them. He only had a 15% defensive contribution if we looked at it from last season. So not a pick that I would be starting the season with. You might want to monitor him if anything that we think about him changes, but as of right now, risky pick. Then we have Gehi at Palace, owned by 13% of FPL managers. I personally think, looking at the data, that Lacroix could be a far better pick. However, he's not the worst, so I'm putting him under risky instead of avoid. But again, I'm not really recommending anyone go with Gehi in Game Week 1. Now we have Frimpong at 26% ownership for FPL managers going into the season. I'm so surprised by this one. He's a risk for rotation. We don't really know how he's going to be treated in that defensive backline for Liverpool, if he's going to be starting games week in, week out. I highly doubt it. He did have amazing stats last season. He had 5 goals and 6 assists in the Bundesliga. But given that Bradley also showed really promising signs last season, I'm not really sure what's going to be happening with that right wing. So for now, I'm going to say that Frimpong is a risky pick. For those same reasons, I'm saying Kerkez is also a risky pick. Owned by 10% of FPL managers, he'll be sharing the left wing with Robertson. He had a decent amount of attacking contributions last year with 2 goals and 6 assists. People are saying he's going to play loads. I don't really see why they think that. We've heard XPL experts say this kinds of thing before, but it's pure conjecture. Could be true, could be false. We won't really know until the season starts, which is why for now, he's a risky pick. Now moving into the next tier, decent. If you watched any of my past FPL videos, you'll know that I'm a big fan of Esteve. I don't really understand why so many managers have gone with him. I personally had him in my first draft just because I like his name. He's very highly owned at 12%. He is 4 million, and he seems to be nailed in that Burnley back line, but definitely don't expect too many points. Next, we have Pedro Porro. I actually really like this pick. I had him last season, and he's even better this season, I think, because with Maddison's injury, he could very well be on set pieces. 2 goals, 6 assists last season. Hopefully, Thomas Frank sorts out the Spurs defense with Palhinha as well coming in and doing a great job at CDM. We could really see a completely different side of the Spurs backline. However, with the information we have right now, which again is not a lot, I would still put Pedro Porro under decent. Almost made the good category. Next, we have Saliba at Arsenal, owned by 14% of managers. I don't really understand why. The fixtures are really not good for Arsenal. He is, of course, nailed, and Arsenal does have a fixture string in Gameweek 7, so perhaps we want to start looking at players like Saliba then. But as of right now, also looking at his defensive contribution stats, which would have been 15% last season, I really don't think he's the kind of centre back that you want in the game. If you're looking for a centre back with good defensive contributions, you need to be looking at 25, 30% defensive contributions throughout the season. And again, Saliba only had 15% last season. So if we are going with an Arsenal centre back, I would recommend Gabriel. But again, he's injured. So if we're looking at bringing in anyone from the Arsenal backline, we're probably going to wait until game week 7. Next up, Mickey van de Ven, owned by 18% of FPL managers, very well priced at 4.5 million. Spurs have an amazing opening run of fixtures. So if you're feeling confident about Spurs and you want to make a bit of a bet, then absolutely go there. I personally won't be because I'm trying to avoid risk in the early game weeks of FPL this season. But again, if you're more disposed to risk, then go for it. Next up, De Kuiper at Brighton, owned by 8% of managers. He's, again, very well priced at 4.5 million. However, he could be a Barco 2.0. Estupiñán has left, to be fair, and people are saying De Kuiper will play, but we've heard this before, and I just don't trust him enough to have him in my starting 11 from Game Week 1. But if you like risk, he could be a decent pick. Then we have Senesi, 4.5 million at Bournemouth. The opening fixtures aren't great, but he could be one to watch throughout the season. Moving into the good tier, first up we have Munoz, who's owned by 8% of FPL managers, priced at 5.5 million. Good price tag. Last season he had 4 goals and 6 assists, which is a really, really great contribution. He also, for a wide back or a wing back, has pretty decent defensive contribution stats, calculated at 19% for last season. So not bad at all. Then we have Wan-Bissaka, who's now back at West Ham. He's owned by 31% of FPL managers, one of the highest owned players in FPL right now. Kind of insane to think of it when he plays for the West Ham defense, which is arguably one of the worst in the league. I think the reason why a lot of players are going for him, and I'm also considering him, is his really, really, really good attacking contributions. He had 2 goals and 6 assists last season. For 4.5 million, that's pretty astounding. He also had 16% of defensive contributions, which, again, for a fullback is pretty decent. The downside, of course, as I said, is West Ham are a terrible, terrible defense. So if you are picking him, you're not banking on pretty much any clean sheets. Cucurella has been selected by 19% of managers. He's pretty nailed in that Chelsea backline. Very, very attacking. Yeah, I like him. He's a good pick. Next, we have Goodmanson at Leeds at 4 million. The only reason I've included him in this list is because there's some rumours saying that he will be on set pieces for Leeds. Obviously, that's not confirmed, but if that does turn out to be the case, a bit of a boost for him. Again, he's not a player I would be recommending starting. If I own him, he's going to be last on my bench. Then we have Gvardiol in the City backline. He's been selected by 17% of FPL managers going into the new season. I think that's a pretty high number for an asset which I would regard as still pretty risky. I think if we see him starting and nailed in that backline again, then obviously a good pick. There's a bit of a risk there, which is why I haven't put him in the elite pick. However, if he does, as I said, find some form and we see that he's nailed, he could very much move up a category. He had 14% of defensive contributions last season. Depending on whether he plays on the wing or as a centre-back, that could be either good or bad. But again, the Pep Roulette factor is too much for me to pick him for Game Week 1. The final player in the good tier is Lacroix, owned at 1%. He's 5 million, had 3 goal involvements last season, and had a whopping 49% DEFCON if DEFCON would have been active last season. So the fixtures aren't great, which is why maybe we're not seeing him in a lot of teams, but definitely one to monitor. Now for the elite tier. First up, Virgil van Dijk, 23% owned. He's in my team as well since I took Gabriel out. 3 goals and 1 assist last season, but that's not why you're picking him. He's the best defensive contribution player in the top 6. 30% DEFCON, which means he's predicted to have DEFCON points in every 1 of every 3 games, which is pretty amazing. Liverpool also kept the most clean sheets last season, 14. So for me, he's an elite pick. Next up, we have Tarkowski, only owned by 5% of FPL managers. In my mind, Tarkowski is a DEFCON monster. He's predicted to have 66% DEFCON, which is absolutely insane. It basically means out of every 3 games, he's going to get you DEFCON points in 2 of them. Amazing, amazing stats. Great defense, good fixture starting the season. If you don't have the budget for Tarkowski, you could downgrade to Mikalenko. However, Mykolenko doesn't have that amazing DEFCON stat. Then we have the Nottingham Forest giant Milenkovic, owned by 9% of FPL managers. He's got actually really good attacking contributions, 5 goals, 2 assists last season, as well as his defensive contribution, which would have been 35% last season. Really good fixtures as well to open up. He's in my team. Next in the elite picks is Murillo, 5% owned. Again, fantastic pick. He's got even better defensive contribution stats than Milenkovic at 53%, albeit his attacking contributions are obviously lower than Milenkovic's. You'll see there's a bit of a theme here, as this is my third pick from Nottingham Forest in the elite category, but I couldn't leave him out. Nico Williams, only owned by 4% of managers. But at his price point, 5 million, he's cheaper than his colleagues in his department, and I actually think he could be a fantastic pick for this season. 32% defensive contributions, which is the best of all the fullbacks in the game. So if you're short on budget, Nico Williams could be a fantastic pick for you. And now I've included a table ranking the fixture difficulties for all the teams over the first 10 game weeks. Take a screenshot, assess which teams you think would be worth backing from game week 1. As you can see, United is at the very bottom there, which is why I don't think I would be advising anyone going for United assets. You'll probably have noticed that there's some teams missing from the tier list. I've avoided covering Man United, Brentford, Newcastle, and all of the newly promoted sides, as well as, of course, any players facing a lot of rotation or bad opening run of fixtures. So United have the worst run of fixtures in the opening 10 games of the season. Brentford were gutted over the summer, and newly promoted teams we don't have enough information on. And for Newcastle, there's a lot of unknowns going into this new season. They will be in Europe, there'll be much more turnover, and Eddie Howe has not had any of the reinforcements he needed and asked for. There's a sense Newcastle could drop off this season. Want to monitor. I know I should probably include Spurs, as they are also a bit of an unknown going into this new season. And don't get me wrong, I'm definitely not picking any of their players for Game Week 1, but I do consider them slightly less risky than Man United assets, for example. And Spurs' opening fixtures are actually really, really good. They're up there in terms of the best over the next 10 in the new season. So that's it for this video. Let me know what you think of these suggestions in the comments. Did I forget anyone? Next video will be a tier list for midfielders. Thanks for watching. See you on the next one.